So I guess with my first child, I was, I guess, not expecting to go at 40 weeks because I'd read and seen so much about how common it is for new first-time mums to go into labour naturally at 41 and a half weeks. So
right.
In my mind, I had that expectation already.
Yeah.
And then 41 and a half weeks came and went, and 42 and a half weeks came, and
did you feel pressured to be induced, or?
At 42 weeks, I didn't feel any pressure from my midwife at all, but I did have an appointment with the obstetrician at the hospital at 42 weeks and 1 day.
Mm-hmm.
And I did feel pressure from the obstetrician talking to her. We had a scan done, and we had the heart rate monitor put on the baby to find out if, obviously everything is healthy and well, if there's any other reason.
Showing any signs of distress or anything?
Yeah, and baby wasn't being affected at all. I was very, very healthy and well, so clinically I was doing really well. And even so, I still felt the pressure from the obstetrician.
Just because of being past 42 weeks?
Being past 42 weeks, yes. And they did let me know that it was high risk for me to stay pregnant past 42 weeks for the baby's sake. But in my mind, I just had the scan done that morning, and I'd had the heart rate monitor put on my belly, and everything was well. So in my mind, I wasn't putting the baby's life into risk. And so I was really comfortable, and I spoke with my partner, and we were happy to wait. And so I said, I just had to tell her, look, we understand that you want to induce us, but we're going to decline, and we were willing to have another meeting with them at 43 weeks. And then I went into labour at 42 weeks and 5 days with my first son. And
you had a home birth.
And I had a home birth, and it was really wonderful. Very, very cool for a first time birth, to be at home with my partner, and it was really, really wonderful.
Did you feel like you had to be really strong? Or the fact that your midwife was not pushing you made it not as difficult? Or?
My midwife gave me a lot of information, and also because I had done quite a lot of learning about my own choice beforehand. I did feel prepared, but I do think it is hard when someone whose job is of obstetrics and is telling you you need to be induced, and if you're not induced, then you're possibly harming the child. It's hard.
Putting your baby's life at risk.
You're questioning yourself a little bit to say, actually, am I doing the best? But for us, it was, I trusted my body. I trusted we got this baby. We got pregnant naturally. We can give birth naturally. We can don't. And he was almost 3 weeks over. So in my mind, he came perfect timing. It was.
I've read that the statistics before 42 weeks for a stillbirth are something like 4 in 1,000 births, or 4 in 10,000. I can't remember, but they talk about how that increases by 50% or something, so it can go to 8 in 1,000 or 8 in 10,000. It's still very low. And I think, with no problem with your blood pressure or anything, there's still the advantages of waiting until your body is ripe and ready, and your hormone levels have reached the thresholds that they need to reach. Your body makes more receptor sites for oxytocin before you go into spontaneous labor. And they don't really talk about the risks of the induction. That doesn't get outlined to you. They just tell you, you're risking your baby's life if you don't agree to an induction. It's a lot there's a lot more to it than that. So then I met you
Mm-hmm.
when you were pregnant with your second baby, this little girl.
So I didn't have the same expectations to go into labour on my due date this time because of my past history. And so 42 weeks came and went, and I went into labour naturally at 42 weeks and 4 days. So actually
1 day sooner, huh?
just 1 day sooner than Dustin's birth year. And it was so good to wait, and I did feel pretty good about waiting this time, whereas I didn't have the same anxiety and fear that I may have had with my first birth. I guess the only difference this time was I didn't have the obstetrician appointment.
You declined.
I declined going at 42 weeks.
You knew what they were going to say, huh?
I knew what they were going to say, and clinically, again, everything was great. And so at this time, I decided to avoid that anxiety and stress of that, having that conflict and having that fear put on us at that appointment. And instead, we decided to wait and see when my body decided to go into labour. And yeah, the birth was amazing. Again, another home birth, which you were at.
Yeah, I got to be the second midwife that time. Yeah.
And Amelia was amazing. She was very healthy, and
she was bigger than your son, right? Quite a significant amount.
A whole kilo bigger.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So everything worked out great, and I think if we have a third, if we have a third, then again, it's just another stress relief to know that actually my gestation just seems to be a little bit longer than.
And what I try to tell people, women, is, some people have a period every 26 or 28 days. Some people have a period every 35 to 36 days. Some people don't know when to expect their period. And it's same with the gestation. Some women tend to carry their babies longer. And I think it's just that it's not presented as an option to wait for most women. They just feel like everybody starts to say, when are they going to induce you? Well, there's an assumption that you're not going to be allowed to go past a certain date. And, I think I've heard at some hospitals their rate of cesarean with first-time moms being induced is over 60%. It's really high because their body's not ripe and ready. Yeah. And first babies do tend to take a bit longer. And sometimes second ones do too.
Yeah.
So I guess I just wanted to use you as an example for people to get a wider perspective about what's possible.
Yeah. No, that's good.
Thanks.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Yeah, she slept through that.